Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Hello. Hare Krishna, welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast. We're live from the Apple Lounge, Cardiff. There's a special person, Prema.
Okay, welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
I feel special.
So we've got a lovely guest, Prema Prabhu, the owner of Sacred Elephant Incense, who's been a monk for 18 years. Was it Prema?
Was a monk for 18 years, yeah.
Yeah, and has lived probably most of your life dedicated to practicing and sharing spiritual knowledge with people.
Say live most of your life in Wales, then.
Yeah, you're getting you've got quite a
also true.
Cardiff accent now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bless them.
Yeah.
But, sorry, I interrupted you. Most of my life doing what?
Practicing Krishna consciousness and spiritual life and sharing it with others.
Yeah, 23 years.
Yeah.
I'm 45, so yeah. More
So
than half of my life.
That's something I don't know what to talk about first. Either the Sacred Elephants Incense Company. I mean, a lot. I'm very interested actually in your sort of experiences in practicing and also sharing spiritual life with people. I don't know if you could offer some thoughts, but a lot of people, it does seem like you want to sacrifice your life to help others. I think a lot of people do think that they want to help other people. And in I've probably known you for about 10 years or something.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, you have been very selflessly engaged, helping other people to come to spiritual life, sacrificing a lot of time, energy, your life pretty much. You're someone that I've seen consistently for 10 years sacrifice a lot of energy for the benefit of others. And I was just wondering, what inspires that? What do you get from that sort of thing? And I don't know, along those sort of lines, that's what I'd like to sort of discover. And how do you balance that desire with helping people with also,
Making a living.
making a living and having a successful company and things like that?
Well, there's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a lot, yeah. Is that a good question?
Well, I guess I think it's an intrinsic nature of everyone to actually want to help, to serve. Like, you see people naturally want to make other people happy. And I guess you always experience that with cooking. When you cook for yourself, for the most part, you don't put much effort in. It's whatever's quick, easy, and tastes nice. But when you're cooking for other people, you put more effort in, isn't it? You kind of try and make it a decent meal. You're having people round after lockdown. Not yet. And you put effort in because you want to please somebody. So I think it's a natural thing that we have in everyday life, that we naturally have that sense of service or wanting to please somebody. I think it's intrinsic in every single living entity's nature. There's always exceptions to the rules, obviously, but I think for most everyday people, that's there. So then it's just a matter of accessing that. And life as a monk, I remember when I made that decision, 21 years old, I'm going to be a monk. That gives you full access to that, being able to explore that nature of service and trying to make people happy.
At 21 years old, you decided to become a monk.
Yeah. Not on my 21st birthday. But yeah, just about 3 months before my 22nd birthday. Yeah, I thought, I'm gonna give this a go. And I thought, why not? I didn't have anything else going on in my life. I graduated from university. I didn't really have a plan, and so I was interested in the philosophy of Christian consciousness. And so I thought, instead of doing it half-heartedly, why not go for it and see how it goes? And it went pretty well. But yeah, it gives you that.
So we just got Ben's choking at the minute.
I really liked what you said there.
So much so it made you cough.
The Ben will be.
So we've got I think that gives access to that, exploring that nature of servitude, and in that way you don't have to put much actual energy or thought into it, because you're in an environment which encourages it. So if you're in a football stadium that's full of fans and everyone's singing and chanting, you don't have to put a lot of effort into shouting and singing. Even if you're not into football, you kind of get carried away with it. So it's a similar thing. If you're in the right environment, it naturally brings out more than maybe different environments would, that kind of service attitude.
So choosing your environment.
Yeah.
Because I find, left to my own devices, I just turn into like a couch potato sort of thing.
Yeah.
I find I need a group of people to help sort of pull me to a certain standard sort of thing.
Yeah. Everyone's like that, isn't it? If you want to be an artist, you go to art school and you hang out with artists. If you want to be a banker, you go and hang out with people that are interested in money. So wherever gives you that right association, wherever creates the right environment for you to prosper, then you're naturally going to prosper without having to put much effort into that, because it's an automatic consequence of your environment.
So you choose what you want to do, and you choose your environment.
Yeah.
Was that something you was always interested in, spiritual life, like from a young age, or like how did it come about that? Because not every 21-year-old is just like, oh yeah, I'll become a monk. Like, it's a bit of a unusual path, isn't it? So
Yeah. I guess looking back, yeah, maybe at the time it seemed very natural and kind of like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. Yeah, but I guess no, not every 21-year-old decides to do that. I guess as well, also like you guys now, you're a monk yourself, and you live with other young monks, isn't it? Like you got some are 19, 20, 21, 23, 24, older. So it feels quite normal when you're around other young monks that it's like, yeah, this is a normal thing to do. Being monks, our everyday life, it's normal. But looking back, yeah, I guess it wasn't so normal. Some of my friends at the time were a little bit shocked. I remember one really good friend, and she was like, when I cut my hair, she was like burst out into tears. She's like, we didn't think you were taking this seriously, but now I know you are. So yeah, I guess so. But question, yeah, I was thinking about, when you're in school and you choose your GCSEs, and you have careers advisor, and you have to write out this questionnaire. Oh yeah, this is what I want to do in my life. So I think the first thing I put was I put like photography or graphic designer. Second thing I put was policeman, and the third thing, because I couldn't think of anything else, I thought, let's see if they can find anything to give me for this job description, and I put monk. And it wasn't out of some desire to be a monk. I wasn't thinking, I want to be a monk. It was just to be awkward. To see if the careers advisor had anything on their shelf about, this is how you can be a monk. And little did I know.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah. And I grew up in my family, my dad, especially my father, was quite religious, Christian background. Quite progressive Christian though. And I think my grandfather always was very inquisitive about everything. So I remember being affected by that he would kind of, he's very open-minded, liberal-minded, especially for his generation. That he was
your grandfather?
Yeah, my grandpa, yeah. And so he would always be open to exploring whatever, just out of interest. He was naturally inquisitive. So I think that was there as well. It was just like bring up, all the right ingredients were there. So, and like I said, I wasn't doing anything. I was at that point in my life and it was like, okay, what should I do in my life? And along came the Hare Krishnas.
It's interesting what you say as well, how it's like a natural, it feels very natural when you get into spiritual life. It's almost like you're being guided through it, like it's like you're floating down the stream. Do you know what I mean? I'm using but it is a bit like that. It's like, because if you'd asked me like personally like a year before, are you going to be a monk? I'd be like, no, what are you talking about? But then like almost the course of your life just takes this other route, and you end up, I don't know if it was the same for you at all, like what was that like sort of lead up for you, like
Yeah, I think everyone has a similar experience, that you kind of dip your toe into a philosophy or spiritual life and you think, yeah, this is interesting, and then especially when it's very practical, like the Bhagavad Gita, one of the things that's very attractive about it is it's not oh yeah, this is a nice philosophy. It's like this practical guidebook to how to lead a spiritual life. This development of inner consciousness being the important thing, and then how to practically have that. So everyone has that experience of like, yeah, you dip your toe in, you're finding something out, and then when you apply it to your life, it feels satisfying, it feels natural, because it's like, oh yeah, what's written or in the guidebook, oh yeah, it happens. So yeah, you feel good. And then I think also spiritual life, if you're getting back in touch with who you really are, then the soul, then that feels natural, because it is natural. So then, yeah, like you said, you just get carried away by the current of that, in that river.
Yeah, it's so important as well. Like the Bhagavad Gita, what you said, is very practical. Like, because if you try reading out, like you read other spiritual books, they tend to be a bit like wishy-washy, like a bit sort of like airy-fairy. But particularly Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, it's very like clear.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to say that they're airy-fairy.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think there's content in all spiritual literature that can actually be practically applied. But I think there's something for everyone. So if not everyone can become a monk, but everyone can practice spiritual life. Now, not everyone can just mold their life completely around the development of consciousness. So then there's spiritual guidebooks out there, there's religious scriptures, whatever you want to call them, for those people to help move them forward. So I don't think it's fair to say wishy-washy. Maybe they're not as in depth, or they're not as focused on the development of the soul as Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is very much like, okay, you've realized you're a spirit soul, and now here's how to live a life based on that. Whereas others may need to get you to that point where the conclusions, like the end of their spiritual book is, oh yeah, I'm not the body, I'm a spirit soul. So they have to teach people how to get to that point. The Bhagavad Gita pretty much starts on that point. Very, very quickly establishes it, and then in the second chapter, and then the other kind of 16 chapters of it are talking about what to do about that. So I think there's something out there for everyone, for wherever they're at, and for whatever they need. And I'm pretty sure we've all read other philosophies as well, and they got us to that point. Like, I know there's a comic I used to read. I used to be mad into comics. Go about use it.
Yeah, I'm a proper comic geek.
And there's a comic I used to read called The Sandman by this guy called Neil Gaiman. And I remember when it came out, and it blew my mind. Here's this comic, and no one really knew about it. It was like this kind of thing that people didn't know about, and then it exploded because there was nothing else like it before. It was just amazing that it integrated like history and deep philosophy into like this comic book story, and it presented these ideas that that planets actually had a personality. They weren't just a planet. There was they had feelings and all these really far out ideas, but put them into this concept of kind of relatability, that consciousness, and that every living thing has consciousness. So I can say without a doubt, if it wasn't for that comic, I wouldn't have read the Bhagavad Gita or been interested in it. I wouldn't take that comic book as scripture. but it definitely implanted things in my head of like developing that interest, like, well, what is there in the world, what's behind everything, and it also implanted that kind of wonder of everything, that everything in the universe is amazingly wondrous, how it works and what's behind that. So yeah, there's everybody has that. So whether it's they read these other scriptures or philosophies or whatever, to get to that point of being able to then take the next step of understanding who they are.
That's interesting, because one thing I was thinking earlier, when we say like spiritual life, because we say it a lot in the podcast, what got you into spiritual life? And then I was thinking, well, what do we mean by spiritual life? It's quite a vague term.
Yeah.
But at the minute, something that does seem to be coming up is just this search and desire to experience more, to understand more, sort of thing. Would you agree with that? Or
yeah. And
how would you define spiritual life? And is it a fair term for us to use? And what are we trying to get at, sort of thing?
I guess it's quite a westernized term, isn't it? It kind of gives, because in the West we don't like the word religion. Religion has this concept of it being, you're very, very staid and without life, and kind of very much just, you go to this because you have to, or you do, it's like duty.
A bit more rules and regulations, and spiritual life's a bit more free and fluid, is it?
Yeah, whereas spiritual life, you can be anything, isn't it? It's like people say, I'm spiritual. So what does that mean? But I think it's kind of like trying to find that terminology. Well, spiritual, doing something based on your spirit, and then leading a life that's based on that. So the focus being like, spiritual life means a life based on inner development, the development of the soul, the development of the spirit, the upliftment of it. So that's how I kind of look at spiritual life. It's not a religious practice. There's that Sanskrit term, isn't it, that is there in all Eastern religions, the Dharma, the essence of something. So spiritual life, that's leading a life based on the essence of the self, the soul. And that's changed. It was interesting, like you said, and I never thought about it. Looking back, it makes me feel old when you said, 23 years of kind of serving or having a life of service, and what's that been like. And I thinking like, when I started when I was 21, mobile phones, nobody had mobile phones apart from yuppies, these people on Wall Street with these big bricks. The internet was just something that when you looked at it was pretty much articles. There was no pictures or anything. It was just, we used to go on the internet to kind of plagiarize essays for our dissertation. So that didn't really exist. And, so many things just weren't there. Digital music, things like iPods, or to speak of like, smartphones, they didn't exist. So stuff like this, being live on a podcast. If you went up to someone in the early 90s and said, I'm going to do a podcast, they would think it was probably something to do with like gardening. Like, you're throwing out your peas on the garden, you're casting the pods or something. I don't know. So you can see, getting that message out changes in the way it's kind of taken and given out as well, changing with the times. But the constant is that, let's leading into understanding our consciousness, the nature of the soul. So whether it's kind of online or whether it's in person, whatever, that there's that constant, even though times change in its presentation.
Still this desire to, people still have a desire to improve spiritually, and also there's similarly the knowledge and communication of that knowledge and experience is still there, but how you communicate it changes.
Yeah.
Have you noticed any difference in the? Because you do a lot of like talks, you do a lot of seminars, things like that. What are the basic hurdles that you come across, and what are the basic points that you try and get across also? And are the hurdle, like you said back then, there was only the only mobile phones were like bricks, etc. Are the hurdles different then than now? When I say hurdles, maybe like questions or misconceptions sort of thing, or is it always the same?
I think the hurdles are the same. I think the basic problems are always the same. Like you're saying, what's the biggest hurdle? Like if I'm doing talks, what's the biggest hurdle? And the first hurdle I always come across is myself. There's that kind of ego, the false ego. How do I want to be perceived? How do I want to project myself? What am I going to get out of this? What will people think of me? Do I want praise? Do I want this? And so that's there. That's always the hurdle, I think. That kind of moving that aside, getting rid of your self-interest out of something. Whether it's like, I remember it was, like we're Hare Krishnas, we sing. And I remember like I wanted to sing, like lead a kirtan for so long, but the thing that was stopping me was like my mentality of why I wanted to do that. That I wanted to be kind of looked at, I wanted people to think I'm a good singer, I wanted all these things. And that hasn't gone away. It's kind of there. But you just learn, okay, I have to move that hurdle out of the way. And then the other hurdle I find is that more general, the hurdle that's getting in the way of people practicing spiritual life is that for the most part we're really convinced that the body and the mind and the ego is everything and is us. Why do people have fights? Why is there wars? Why do people have disagreements? And you look at the essence of all of it, it's because like it's always that bodily concept, that lack of knowledge of being more than the body. And that hurdle hasn't changed. I think that's a constant throughout history. A caveman thought he was a caveman, so he'd go, I'm a caveman.
Cardiff City,
City. Yeah. It's like
just because you're born in a certain place.
Yeah, a bit of mud. So there's 40 miles from each other. Like, oh yeah, I'm from this bit of mud called Swansea, and I'm from this bit of mud called Cardiff. And before Cardiff and Swansea, it was Cardiff and Newport. So those two bits of mud.
Wales, England.
Yeah.
UK, Europe, whatever.
Yeah. So that's there. And I think that's the biggest hurdle that we all have to get over, of realising, we're not this body. There was something much more exciting, much more impressive. Much more beautiful.
So that's the message. That's the message you like to give, and then once that's understood, then that opens up I guess that must open up a whole different life view for someone, right?
Which we've all experienced, right? You guys have experienced that as well. It's like one day you're kind of, I'm Ben from Port Talbot. And then the next day it's like, no, I'm this eternal soul, which just for this one lifetime happens to have been born in Port Talbot. But I'm this like eternal traveller. It's like all of a sudden there's that realization, I'm not this body. So you guys have experienced that, and everyone does. And when you do that, it's magical. It's miraculous. It's all of a sudden there's this light that's turned on, and it opens up this whole world of adventure and experiences that the everyday, what we used to look at as being everyday and completely mundane, when you're looking at it through all of a sudden spiritualized eyes or a kind of divine consciousness, it's amazing. Just the fact that there's a table existing there, when you start to understand it from a deeper perspective, is actually quite miraculous.
Table and these plants.
Yeah.
Living plants.
Yeah.
Life.
That concept though of being like on an eternal journey.
Mm.
Because like when you're just going through life normally, it's just that little life. This is who I am. But then when you hear some of this spiritual wisdom, and it teaches that like about reincarnation, how we've had many lives before. It like completely zooms you out, and you realize you are like on an adventure through space. Like, but we're all going somewhere. Like, where are we going, good pal?
Yeah. There's lots of old philosophers, isn't there? Like Shakespeare's often quoted, but I think also there's in Euripides. Yeah, some Greek.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
That's the one. Sounds good, doesn't it? Something like that. Some Greek name, where they point out a similar thing, and I think Shakespeare might have plagiarised him a little bit, actually. Bit controversial there.
You heard it here first.
There's this quote that's like, yeah, everyone's like a player on a stage. Yeah. They're playing a part temporarily, and then they're going on to like play another part. And then so you start thinking, one thing it helps you realise, life's not so serious. That sometimes we just take everything so seriously, like little things. And kind of, you walk down the road, you stub your toe, and it's like, why does the universe hate me? It's like it placed that there for you to stub your toe. No, just stub your toe and move on.
Isn't that weird how we do get so blown out about just tiny little things? What is that?
I got no idea.
It's angry and we want any chance to get it out. Like,
I actually think it's because by nature, if the soul's there by nature, it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? It's full of knowledge, full of bliss, and fully cognizant. Satchitananda, and it is eternal. So if you have this nature which is always aware and always happy and blissful and fully engaged in its entirety, and then you put that wonderful thing into this package which has so many limitations.
And drop the new portal there.
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with portal.
The body has all these limitations, and you've dropped this unlimited thing into a limited thing.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden the mundane seems to be so dramatic, because we're like a fish out of water, but we're trying to experience eternal pleasure in a thing which is temporary. It's impossible.
So we're experiencing through that as well, isn't it? Like,
so we're naturally going to be frustrated. So then I think we're looking for that bliss in everything, but it's not there because it hasn't got it. The material world isn't a blissful place. It's not designed to be. So we're out of place, and I think that's why we get so frustrated by everything, because then trying to be happy, but it's not possible. So then you get angry, and it's like that frustration leads to anger, and then you start like every little thing kind of winds you up.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Even still,
So, but then when you get in touch with that consciousness, then all those things, they don't matter.
Yeah,
you kind of get free.
Yeah, but like you said earlier, like you used to have this like ego response, like when you get on stage, like
still do.
Yeah, so we still have this have this body. We're still in this material world.
Yeah.
But like the beauty of spiritual life is you get the perspective then. So you say, okay, these things are happening to me because that's just the way things happen in this world. But you've got that like detachment. Is that so? Like as you become sort of detached from the. You
can learn to tolerate it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is just my body trying to do this to me.
Yeah.
Whether it's the gross body or the subtle body, the mind and the ego, it's this is what comes along with the body, and it's trying to make me act like this. Now I tolerate that, and I don't have to act on it.
And you don't have to identify with it.
It's not me.
Yeah. Because before it was like, I am angry.
Yeah.
But now you're just like, oh, my body's getting angry because of this.
Yeah.
And you just sort of watch it and try and rein it in a bit.
Yeah, and you realise, what a waste of energy that is. And then it starts to become laughable. And then it's like you can see the comedy of it, how ridiculous it is, and it's actually quite funny. Like that you can kind of see the ridiculousness of our egos and how they just do really stupid things. It really is. Like, kind of gets to that feeling ridiculous.
Yeah, interesting. It's all a matter of perspective, isn't it?
Charlie, if there are any questions as well on Facebook. let us know if anyone wants to ask any questions.
Should we let you know when they come through? Or?
Yeah, raise your hand or something.
Yeah, Prema, I got a rap about what you just said as well.
Have you?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Sick.
Let's hear the rap. Coming out of Paul Talbot.
You are a spirit soul. You're an actor on the stage trying to play a role. You're a part and a parcel trying to be the whole, and all this playing around is really taking its toll.
Whoa!
Cringe. Do you like that?
I loved it.
You're a part and a parcel trying to be the whole.
You got to make sure no one snaps you up
Yeah.
from like.
Don't steal them bars. I want royalty.
Yeah, copyright, isn't it? Get it published quick.
Yeah, Eminem.
Eminem.
They wanted to cancel Eminem. Did you hear that? Like some.
Cancel him.
Yeah, there's, the cancel culture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you know?
Going down that road, are we?
Well,
Spiritual.
I promised I wouldn't use any triggers. Because you mentioned raps, and they want the Generation
Eminem's getting
Z.
cancelled.
Yeah, they want to cancel Eminem for some lyric and some song or something.
Just the one.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Like. Apparently, this one's. I
Right.
don't know.
Okay.
Over the line, mate.
What do you think about the cancel culture?
What is it?
It's the second half of the podcast.
Yeah.
Now, so
What is the cancel culture?
I don't know. Is it?
Why'd you bring it up, then?
Well, I'm trying to work it out myself. So what do they want to do? Cancel? Like if things are offensive, I guess, right? They want to cancel things that are offensive.
Sorry.
Right,
I don't know. I think there's always cultural change, isn't there? There's always things we have to adapt to.
yeah,
And
that's,
so
that's
there's stuff that was said in the 80s. Oh my God, I remember growing up and some of the stuff I saw on TV. It was accepted as norm, you know? And people didn't know any different. They may have thought, oh, this doesn't seem fair. But then when stuff's on the TV and it's part of entertainment by the BBC, then and it's just, unfortunately, that's how society viewed things. And now if you looked at it, you'd be like, ooh, that's bad. How did they get away with saying that without being this? So I think there's always these kind of cultural changes, and there's always going to be cultural bias. That whatever culture it is you're going to have it. Kind of the pendulum will swing one way and then it'll swing the other way and it'll swing the other way. So I think that's what's happening now. There's this kind of, for a long time people said stuff that maybe wasn't very nice, wasn't very good, and acted in a way which definitely wasn't very nice or very good. And now it's kind of like the counteraction of that, the backlash of it, which is, it's normal, isn't it? If you treat people for a certain way for long enough, then eventually there's going to be a backlash. All it takes is a few people to start saying, hang on, no, this is wrong. I was reading some interview the other day with some actress, and for years she said, oh yeah, I got treated as if I was just difficult to work with, and all I was doing was standing up for myself. And then now, what she experienced before, that she was, the whole world was saying, oh, she's difficult to work with. And now she'd be considered like, oh yeah, she's a strong, independent woman. 10 years ago, oh, she's difficult to work with. Same people. So you're always going to have those. But I think they're always based on, when they're always based on our material senses and our material state of mind, they're always going to have their faults. And we're finding that now with the cancel culture, isn't it? That all of a sudden it's like, you got to be careful what you say and who you say it to, and also your cultural heritage that maybe gives you a cultural bias as well. So then it's difficult to, you got to be careful because you might say something that within your culture and within your kind of society or your group is acceptable, and you may even be joking. That's the other thing. You may not even be saying it seriously. It may not be how you think seriously. You may just be cracking a joke. But yeah, somebody hears it and they're like, no, we're not up for that. And that's it. And so now, we have to be careful, which is right. Everyone should be respectful of each other.
Mm.
But it can go too far, where all of a sudden you get it becomes extreme, where you can't say anything else apart from what's in these parameters.
Mm.
So for instance, if we turn around and say to somebody, "Oh yeah, you're not this body, you're a spirit soul,"
Mm.
They may take offence at that, because they may be really like, "No, I'm this body.
Mm.
How dare you say this to me?" So then what happens? You get cancelled. You get somebody says, "Oh yeah, they insulted my body."
Mm.
You didn't insult their body. You just said, "Oh, you're not this body." So it's different how it's taken sometimes, how we hear things and how they're said are often two different things.
Mm.
So it's dangerous. So we always, I think, have to keep a balanced perspective of everything. Respectful, but understand where people are coming from, and try and see past the material influences.
Mm.
And yeah, if people need educating, educate them, but don't ostracize them, because that leads to a divided society, not a society that's together.
Mm.
And so the sentiment behind, say, cancel culture is good. It wants a together society. The sentiment behind it, that people have to be responsible for their actions and what they're saying.
Yeah.
So if they act wrong or what they're saying is harmful, then they need to be called out on it. But you don't ostracize them for it, because then you're not changing them. You're not changing their society or their views. You're just saying, okay, you're not part of our society.
Mm.
And that doesn't help anyone. That just creates division, creates more hatred. And then what you were trying to do by pointing out their fault and telling everyone else actually makes you just as bad, because then you're creating division. You're creating hatred. So we have to be careful, I think.
I think that's just because everyone has different opinions, sort of thing. And I've mentioned it before. I watched this documentary a few months ago about how social media is just the way the algorithms work, not necessarily by some evil design, but just the way the algorithms work apparently is just creating this divide between people.
Yeah,
and
they push it out as a positive thing, like find your tribe.
Mm.
Here's your tribe. Oh, I found my tribe.
And then someone else.
Well, what does that mean? It's like I've been divided. I've been categorized. I've been put in this group, and so now, I wear this T-shirt. Everyone else who wears this T-shirt, they're great. And that's my group. That's my tribe. And everything they say is right. And yeah, it creates division.
So how do we, how do we? I'm just trying to think of the best way to put this question, but so how do we? I think you touched upon it just then as you spoke. But how do we communicate with each other without creating this division? Because there's a lot of it can be a lot of division. At least that's what I see online, sort of thing. And you have, like you said, different tribes, different opinions, and to bring everyone together seems like you can't have everyone together without the unavoidable scenario of just everyone being different and everyone have different of opinions. So how do we, so how would you suggest that we act? Or how do you, how do you bridge that gap? And how do we have real peace, love and unity with the inevitable outcome of everyone just being individual and different and beautiful, sort of thing?
That sounded like another rap, didn't it? Peace, love and
Do you know what
unity.
you've got?
You've got, I think it all starts with that understanding you're not the body. Again, it's back to that point.
Yeah, it is.
It's like all those problems come because we're identifying with being the body, and then all the different groupings that come with the body. I'm black, white, yellow, brown, man, woman, non-binary, all these different designations which kind of we identify with. I'm young, old, middle-aged, tall, short, big ears, small ears. I like this band, I like that band, I support this football team, that. They're all just coming from the body. So I think if we treat each other like a soul, then that's a good starting point, because then you're starting to see this person, okay, they're more than this body, they're more than their cultural heritage, they're more than what I see.
Deep down they're the same as me, sort of thing.
Yeah, we have that individuality as well, that you treat someone like an actual individual, that they're not there for your enjoyment.
Mm.
And that's where a lot of these problems come. It's like, I want to enjoy you, so you have to do what I want to do. You have to think the same as me, be the same as me. But you kind of move past that. That they're not here, you're not here for my enjoyment. I'm not here for your enjoyment. And then developing that mood of, how can I actually help this person be happy? What can I do for them? And then bringing that into spiritual life is then being able to discuss the nature of the soul with that kind of platform of humility and respect. That it's not always necessarily a competition of like, I'm right, you're wrong, my tribe's your tribe. It's that kind of, no, you can have discussions about soul, discuss the differences of opinion as well as the similarities. And then you can have nice open discussions. Oh, excuse me.
I feel like it's like propensity to find fault in other people. It's like it's so strong. But like if you look at some of the Vedic texts, they talk about finding the good in people instead of the bad.
Yeah.
So like, because if you look around, there's so many faults in this world. It's a world made of faults, So you'll see faults everywhere. But if you can start to learn to shift your vision, okay, I want to see how this person's, what's similar to me about them, rather than what's different. Like rather than focusing on each other's, he's from Swansea, I'm from Cardiff, whatever. You see, okay, he's funny. I like this quality about him. I like that quality about them. And when you start to highlight people's good qualities, then it's sort of bringing more positive vibes up in the atmosphere.
Wasn't this that Jesus says, isn't it? Hate the sin, not the sinner. Let him without sin cast the first stone. There's all these nice kind of things to just think of. Like, none of us are without fault.
No.
So how can we spend so much energy finding fault in others? There's obviously universal truths, you can't say, it's all right to go killing people because that's their truth. No, there's obviously universal truths. We all know, it's wrong to kill.
Yeah. And Wales is better than England.
Universal
truth as well.
You can't say it, you'll get cancelled now.
It's a Welsh Yogi podcast. Wales.
But that's the thing, that's the worrying thing, isn't it? That all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, you crack a joke, and it's, this is going to be, what do you say? So there has to be some kind of platform for mutual discussion and being able to discuss differences. And then, like I said, there's always boundaries that need to be there, I think, as well. But then that comes with humility and understanding of that basic principle of you're not here for my enjoyment. And then you can communicate, and then you can discuss higher ideals instead of always being dragged into the kind of base kind of things.
I like that, because like we have Atma here in Queen Street sort of thing. So one of the sort of basic ideas is that we, those of us who maybe set up Atma, we like to live our lifestyle the way it's sort of recommended in Bhagavad Gita, for example. But also I want to make sure we get on this element of, but we're here to, serve and uplift people in the best way that we can, from where we're coming from, in a way that just encourages everyone's sort of individuality and just that idea of just different people from different walks of life, and just coming together and helping each other, regardless of maybe differences of thought or philosophy, and sort of uplifting together, like we've said earlier, spiritual life, a sort of journey of uplifting and your consciousness sort of thing.
Yeah. And that's there, isn't it? If you bring it into meditation, we have a meditation practice every day, right? Where we have a certain, you meditate for 2 hours every morning, and it has a very, very focused kind of mood behind it. But we realise, everyone meditates all the time on something. where a lot of people now be meditating on lockdown finishing. What are we going to do? Can we go on holiday? Where can't we go? So it's a very kind of basic meditation, and it's not very fulfilling, and it's not really that wondrous. But everyone does it. This meditation, material meditations. So then it's like, everyone can meditate on something. So encouraging that, finding that point by where they can enter into that kind of development. So whether it's just a simple thing, like, I remember when we used to go to church when I was a kid, you're reciting the Lord's Prayer, give us our daily bread. But at least it's kind of instilling you into this thing of like, this reliance on a higher state of consciousness, a reliance on a higher being, or a reliance at least that there's something more than me that I'm reliant on. So whether that's a nice prayer, give us our daily bread. So it's like, yes, I'm relying on somebody else for my food, it's not me. So at least that's an entry point. It might not be the highest meditation, but it's an entry point where people can realize, yes, there's something more important than themselves, and that they're not independent, that everyone's reliant. So whether you see it on a basic level of, I've got to go to the baker to get my bread, or I've got to get the ingredients from somewhere, it's not coming from me. And then that can expand then onto deeper meditation practices, and whether it's going out to a more universal meditation or a personalistic idea of an absolute reality. Whichever the depth is there. So Atma's a good place for that to develop. No matter where people are at, there's something for them to step on to that path of meditation. And that was one of the things we had with the incense, the sacred elephant incense. It was one of the purposes behind it, is that it's a meditation aid for me. And its traditions. It's you have different fragrances. There's a sense of smell is the first sense which develops in a child before anything else. So it's really informative, the sense of smell. It creates moods. So you have all these different fragrances which would be there for meditations. So you'd get these yogis would sit by riverbanks, and they would have kusha grass with the some fragrance of jasmine flowers for their meditations, and monks in temples, whether it was the morning or midday or evening, they'd have different fragrances because it would aid their meditation. So that's where my tradition's coming from, that in the temple, when you're growing up as a monk, you have incense burning in the morning because it aids your meditation. So it helps with this sacred practice, creates a nice sacred space, it creates a meditative space. Not everyone buys incense for that. So you can see, there's different entry points into that experience. So some people buy it just like, we want to hide the smell of the cats or the dogs. But they're smelling something nice. So it raises their consciousness above the effect of the cats and dogs would have on them. So at least there's something. So their consciousness is raised a little bit. So it's the same with all forms of meditation. Wherever we can jump on, then it will raise our consciousness. And so whatever can help that and aid it, let's do it. Let's not say, you're not our tribe, so sorry. It's like, nah, forget the tribes. That's the problems. So and Atma's a good place for that, I think. Anyone can come in.
You can get some of that incense here as well. We've got a nice stock.
Well, you could. I've seen your shelves, and you've got two boxes. So if you want some from here, you better come and get it quick.
No, it is really nice incense. We have it in a temple. It aids all of our meditation. Lovely.
That's where you get your dad for his birthday and stuff. It was incense.
But there's that thing, isn't it? That you create a sacred space. Whatever you do, it's kind of you try and create that atmosphere that helps you practice your spiritual practices, whatever they are, and then that way you can develop. And then if you are around like-minded people, then that'll develop more and more and more and more. So Atma's a nice place, I think, where like-minded people can come in, regardless of their bodily heritage or their cultural heritage. It's a nice place to get away from all of that,
Mhm.
all the problems of the material world.
That's nice. That's something nice I've seen in our Food for Life, with all the volunteers and the people who have helped us, and or how we've helped each other, sort of thing, from all different walks of life, age groups, communities, religions. It's all all come together over.
Because there's been some of the people that were on that TV show with you come and help out, right?
Oh yeah, Hannah.
Young
and
Welsh and pretty religious, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got people that are of different faiths, but because they know, Gopal the Hare Krishna, and oh yeah, he's doing this thing for COVID, and his wife's doing it. Oh yeah, we'll come and help out him, regardless of faith.
Yeah.
So it's good. You get rid of the boundaries, then you can see, society can grow.
Yeah. Help each other, innit? Help each other grow.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna.
Anything from Facebook?
No question.
Alice, have you got a question?
We've got Alice in the audience with us, studio audience, and Charlie. Charlie, do you want to put your face in the camera?
Studio audience.
Woo. Charlie's everyone's favourite. Okay.
Comments.
That was very nice.
Yeah, thanks, Prema. That was really nice.
So, it's nice.
Yeah.
Nice to be here.
It's profound. I'm still thinking about that. Cat analogy.
What,
With the incense.
The cat analogy.
Which cat analogy?
Which cat analogy?
I'm just going to repeat it so I understand it properly. So, some people just get incense to hide the smell of the cats and dogs in their house.
Yeah.
So even though that's so then that smell of incense uplifts their sort of consciousness from the nasty smell of the dogs and the cats to a nicer smell of incense. And you similarly, you said you have quite a profound, deep sort of way you look at incense in order to aid your deep meditation sort of thing. So any way to use it uplifts you. So similarly, any connection with meditation or spiritual life, no matter why you approach it, uplifts you. Is that the point? Is that it? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, you come in contact with something, isn't it? So that everything can actually aid you spiritually in your development. Anything. But there's different entry points. So, you're going to feel happier having a nice smelling house than a house smelling of cats and dogs.
Yeah.
So that you're going to be happier. It's raising your consciousness up a little bit because at least the smell's a bit nicer. So that's like a simple meditation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not this body, I'm not this body. Or, that was it, Om Tat Sat, I am not this, I am not that. So it's very simple. It's kind of not focusing on what you are, but it's like, okay, realizing, well, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this.
Mm-hmm.
Or just a meditation of just being mindful of what's going on. That's going to raise your consciousness away from ignorance. That at least you're not ignorant of what's going on. You're not just aimlessly, unconsciously walking down the street anymore. You're kind of mindful of actually what's happening. So that's a nice starting point. But then, it can be progressive.
It's a topic that we don't know. Maybe we can invite you again and touch upon it. But it's quite a technical topic, but an interesting one. The different levels of consciousness, different levels of upliftment of consciousness, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
I've had it with, when I've done yoga shows, and I catch myself sometimes. I'll be talking about incense with people, and they'll come up and say, "Oh, what's good for this?" And all of a sudden, I've launched into this whole thing about all the different fragrances. And, oh yeah, well, this is good for this. This is good. Oh, what are you going to do? This is meditation. Oh, you need this one, this one, this one. And they're just looking for something they like the smell of. Yeah. And I've given them this whole explanation of like all the different fragrances, different times of the day, different types of yoga, different types of meditations they might be doing, and they're just like, oh, we just want to have a nice smelling room.
Set it on fire.
Yeah. So it's great. Okay, that's for that. But then you've got the not advanced, but more developed maybe in their use, and you'll have people come and say, okay, look, we do our yoga at this time of day. What would be good?
you get people like that.
Yeah. So, and then you say,
Connoisseurs,
okay, yeah, it's like, okay, this would be good for you. And then we have Ayurvedic incense. It's like, oh yeah, what's your bodily nature? What's, okay, this is good for you. If you want this, it's for this. And there's lots of kind of platforms that people enter into. So yeah, it's the same with any meditation. There's the entry level and there's the more developed, and then there's all the bits in between. But we should always at least try and connect with something higher than ourselves every day, I think, and try and see the world in that way, that it's not a mundane place. It's actually the energy behind everything's quite amazing. And then connecting with that will raise our consciousness.
Nice. That's a nice point to end on, actually. You got something from Facebook, is it?
Are you going to read
Yeah. Greg Locke says that.
Hey, Greg.
He says, assuming there's a part 2, he wants there to be a part 2 because he could listen to Prema Ras all day.
Thanks, Greg.
And one from Yamanuja.
That's my wife. Full transparency there.
And my wife asks, what time are you going to be hurt now?
yeah. What's for breakfast?
So what's the biggest lesson you've learned in life?
Biggest lesson I learned in life? Always listen to my wife.
That's a good answer.
Biggest lesson I've learned in life? I don't know. There's always seek out the association of people that can help you grow spiritually. And then if you have that, everything else will naturally happen. If you don't have it, life becomes very difficult. So always make sure, you have that association of spiritually minded people.
That is powerful.
Beautiful.
That is.
Can't do it on your own.
We'll end on that.
Yeah, you can't do it on your own.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prema. Looking forward to part 2.
True.
And Hare Krishna. We've been Welsh Yogis. If anyone's in Cardiff, Atma's open today, so come in for your meal. And if anyone wants to volunteer, then let us know. If anyone wants a copy of the Bhagavad Gita, then write us a message on Facebook.
And if anyone wants Ben's rap, you can get it for download.
Yeah, available on iTunes.
99p.
If you want some incense, go on sacredelephant.com. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. Prabhupada.
Madhashikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Madhashikshana Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda